topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. This isn't just a podcast. This is a call to action for all entrepreneurs who are tired of seeing their businesses and communities suffer while big business continues to grow by the billions. We challenge you to apply the content of our time together to create businesses that your clients can't resist, your employees love to work for, and your communities can depend on. Now is the time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. All right. Hey, welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. This is Matt Barbie, and I have a guest here with me today, Joe Chiba.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to have you, man.
You too.
How you doing? Doing well?
Doing well.
Good. You're looking good. You're looking sharp.
Thank you.
Looking awake. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
The coffee's been good.
Good. I've got my yerba mate tea in my Hulk cup here, so yeah.
That never fails.
It's not reflective of my mood, though, I swear. So, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little hangry. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. But anyway, all right. So this is Entrepreneurs Ascending, and it's so great having you here with us today. Again, this show is not just like another podcast, just another show. This is really about a call to action. This is about the fact that small business is really being crushed by big business. And we as entrepreneurs, as problem solvers, we need to take in all the information that we can and apply it to our businesses every day, every step of the way, to have that competitive edge. And one of the big things that we love to talk about is like relationship and about people. And so, that's going to be kind of a big part of what we're talking about today, especially in the first part. We're going to be talking about living a life of significance and enjoying that life of significance and what that means and how to do that for you. And then the second part, we're going to be digging into risk management and risk management for small business. Risk management is one of those things where it's kind of like, whatever pops into your head, you might try to think about, it's really though, like it's a skill to be developed. And Joe here, he kind of acts as kind of a risk manager, kind of for the small businesses that he serves, because he works in the insurance realm, and a lot of people don't necessarily connect the dots between insurance and risk management, but as a small business, you typically can't pay for a risk manager. I mean, the big businesses will have like risk managers who are doing analysis. They have tables. They do statistics on the likelihood of, because I've helped Fortune 500 companies implement risk management strategies and improve them and all that. So I mean, I love this topic, but small business owners, you typically don't necessarily have that. So having an ally like Joe is one of your best business advisors that you can have on the table, around that table for you. So glad to have Joe here today. But so let's dig into though, like significance. Like what, Joe, you happen to be here, so I'll ask you, what is like living a life of significance mean to you?
When I think of that word, I just break it down. I think about, what is the purpose? Significance is, I think, having impact. And I know with my business and living a life of significance, I feel is, really just trying to think about more than just yourself. Focus on the people around you, the people that are in your lives, whether it's your family, your clients, and just trying to have an impact, positive impact on those folks around you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of talking about it and thinking about it. What impact are you having? And that's another way people talk about it. What's the impact? But to me, like that sense of significance, so many people struggle with that sense of significance. I mean, look at Facebook. you have everybody trolling everybody because it's like they just want to feel significant. They want their opinion to matter. And so, they get on there and they blast somebody else trying to make themselves feel significant in the moment. And it's sad because there's so many better, healthier ways to do it. So I remember a little while back, Tim Tebow did a different spelling, Tebow, but
No relation.
no relation. He did do what?
But I like Tim Tebow for the record.
Right, yeah. Set the record straight, yeah. He did a talk on significance, and he brought up that picture that Kevin Carter did. He was a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. He won the Pulitzer Prize for this. And Roxy, thank you so much for being with us, doing the engineering for the show today. Can you show that picture for us, Roxy? Yeah. So this is the picture. So here's the thing. Kevin was down there, and I believe he was with like the African Defense Force. But he was kind of I think he was an amateur photographer at the time. And he saw this little girl, but he was told not to touch anybody or interact with anybody because of disease and just sickness, and so he saw this little girl. Thank you, Roxy. He saw this little girl, and there's that vulture sitting behind her because she was moving so slow as she was trying to go from her village to the food bank or the where she was trying to get a meal. Obviously she was starving. And, he went over there and kind of like shooed away the vulture, but it kind of came back. And then like he did that a couple of times and then he left. He ended up getting the Pulitzer Prize for that picture. 4 months later, he ended his own life. And it was just too much to bear. Just thinking about the fact that like he could have had an impact there. And maybe he brought some awareness to it, but that little girl in that moment, he didn't really help. He just left her there because it seemed like the price was just too much. So, to me, it's a great example of where, you have these moments in your life. I mean, moment by moment, an opportunity to be significant in somebody else's life. And sometimes we're just so caught up in our own concerns and anxieties and the next thing that's going to coming down the pike or the problem that we had yesterday that's still haunting us, that we miss out on those things. So Joe, like what are some things that you do, to try to kind of recenter yourself and think and bring yourself back to like, how do I have more significance in people's lives?
Yeah, I think I just, I think about how fast life goes by. With business, you're juggling a lot of different things. You're wearing a lot of different hats in the course of a day, and sometimes it's you really have to build your business to where you've got time to focus, and think about intentionally about the call you're going to make and the impact you're going to have, and what questions may be there, just being prepared and being there in the moment. Because, I know I've been on calls where, I was distracted going into the call, just ending one conversation, the phone rings and I jump right into another one. And, it's good to be focused and intentional, and know that every conversation has meaning, and, just be there. Everyone deserves that focus, and, just making sure you build your business so that, you can deliver that kind of, attention and focus.
Yeah, I think that's good. I like what you said there about kind of taking that moment too. So like yesterday, I kind of woke up a little bit of a funk. I was working with somebody and we had found a really great candidate, and unfortunately that person ended up taking a position somewhere else. So I don't know. I was, for some reason it was bothering me, probably more than it should, because we're working and we've got a lot more candidates too. But it's just kind of like maybe a little bit of empathy for the clients and just like, man, I know he's he was really excited about it, and it kind of sucks, So I guess I was kind of waking up yesterday and thinking about it. But I had to kind of like recenter myself, and because I didn't want that going into all of my other meetings. And I didn't want it to slow me down from helping him with the next thing, right? And so one thing that I've found that helps me, and this can be, I think, taken with a spiritual in a spiritual way, or it can be just done through kind of like meditation, but taking that moment before I step into a meeting with somebody else, and kind of, I kind of just ask for some guidance and like, okay, how can I be more present for this person? How can I, feed into this person's life and help this person in this moment? Like, what does this person need the most? And I use it kind of a spiritual. I ask for kind of spiritual guidance, but I think it can also be kind of an affirmation if spirituality is not your thing. It can also be kind of an affirmation or a reminder, like before you go in, how help me, or before I go in there, I just think about, okay, I need to look for what this person needs in this moment. Even for like a sales meeting, I've been in sales meetings where, I realize that like there's something else that this person kind of needs before they work with me. And if I can be honest and true with myself about, okay, how can I positively impact this person as opposed to trying to close the deal? When they're, I can tell they're kind of not really ready for it, or maybe they kind of need something else. It helps me to be more, I think, a more significant impact with that person. So is that kind of like what you were talking about there, Joe?
It is.
Yeah.
And I'll mention, there is a scripture that, I've read, that helps keep me focused. It's Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. And it says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves."
Yeah.
Do not merely look out for your own personal interest, but also for the interest of others. Like, it's really good to, like you said, take a minute, refocus, and make sure that, your intention is to help the other person, not, focus so much on, what you're doing for your business. You know what I mean? It's, I think when we start with that, we start with that first, we're always going to be on a better, more focused and, and better intended.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think there's kind of looking at things at a bigger picture too. There's moment by moment where if we're going to interact with somebody, think about that. And I think that we need to do, and let me take one quick step back, because I think that, we think about business and we think about relationships there. But I mean, I know it can, when you get home, it can be hard to leave some of that stuff at the office, or, in your home office, or on the computer, wherever it might be. But it's just important. It's just as important to do that, like with your family and your loved ones, I think, because I mean, they've got stuff going on too. And I mean, I know that it can be hard with all especially as a business owner, you've got like the weight of the world on your shoulders. And sometimes you just want to go home and just chill, but I try to take heart, and this idea of significance has really been something that's kind of like bouncing around in my head a lot more lately too, because I think about like with my daughters or my wife, and if there's something that's like distracting me or something like that, I'm like, I want them to know that they're significant to me. I want them to know that they're significant in my life. How can I help them know that? And that kind of helps me as kind of a mantra when I go home,
That's good.
Yeah. So, but there's also kind of that bigger picture, because I know like a lot of people have been struggling with their own like mission, like their own mission in life, their own mission with their business. They're kind of going through the motions. With what you do, you're an insurance agent, and I know that a lot of times, it can feel like there's a lot of insurance agents out there, and it feel like people are only calling you to try to get the lowest rate or something like that, right?
Right.
But you want to have a more significant impact on their lives. So, like, how do you relate, what you do back to like your own kind of like mission, that impact that you want to have, overall as the bigger mission?
Sure. Well, I watch the same commercials that my clients watch. I'm not going to name any names, but that's marketing. It's really just basing the value on cost, and a lot of folks haven't experienced a loss, a claim that they weren't properly protected. So it's until that happens, they don't always see the value. But I do see those claims situations. So I know what happens when you don't have the appropriate coverage, and that's why it's so important to go through the details with folks and make sure they understand. So you're not just looking at that bottom number there as the biggest consideration, because lowest cost doesn't always equate to best value. So showing them the application of the coverages and giving them claim scenarios, those are usually helpful to kind of drive home that value and why they need certain coverages.
Yeah. So trying to figure out how you're going to help them to protect themselves, right, and protect their families, should the unthinkable happens. So it's kind of that idea of helping them to see what they might not see, and protect them. I think that's good. I mean, and for me, the name of my coaching company is Time for Success, and it's interesting because there's a difference between success and significance. And even kind of going back to that picture, the gentleman, Kevin Carter, he was successful. I mean, he got a Pulitzer Prize for that, but he didn't feel like it was significant or in a way that was important to him. Because I think that there's other people out there who might have a different perspective on that, maybe bringing awareness to the world or something like that. Certainly. But for him and for what he wanted in his life, while it was successful, it wasn't significant. How would you tease those two apart, Joe? Uh-oh. Somebody sneaking in.
Yeah. Probably should have put the sign on the outside of my door.
Right. Recording, keep out.
Yes. There's, I think, there's different stages of your business. In the beginning, I know there's a lot of demand. There was always demands, that keep you focused on being successful. But just like that gentleman found out, it's, he, that may have, the accolades that he received and, the notoriety from that was not what he interpreted as significant. He sounds like he there was a lack of, fulfillment or purpose in what, happened with that picture. And I think it's there's a lot of folks that get to, they just get focused on the wrong things, and it's easy to do because of the demands of a business. You've got financial obligations, you've got employees, you've got, all these things that you're thinking of other people, and you have to hit these goals, to be able to keep the business, moving forward. But, I think that mission and really understanding your purpose on the front end of that is going to provide a better, more fulfillment for you, your employees, for, your clients, having, that's what comes to mind, when I'm thinking about that picture and that gentleman, having, being so depressed to the point of suicide. I don't, I'm sure he had some regrets, but obviously, but it's, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, for me, like the difference between success and significance, I mean, again, the company Time for Success, I really want, I really want for my clients to feel significant. And I want them to feel significant in their own ways, because I think that there's that the societal pressures of what success should be. But if that's not really necessarily important to you, then I think that can kind of leave you feeling hollow, like that wasn't really significant for me in my life. And and I think that significance, success can be, I think, yeah, those accolades, or maybe hitting a certain mark with a certain goal that you had. It could be a financial goal, but how did you impact others along the way? Was it really meaningful in how you kind of felt like your mission for the world, and how you wanted to improve other people's lives, or build relationships? Did you have that impact that you wanted to have? So yeah, and I think it's an important distinction. As we saw, it was important for Mr. Carter in that example. But yeah, so I typically, when I work with people, I encourage you to sit some time and sit down and think about, like, okay, what is your mission and your vision, and what are your values, and really, I think we mentioned it. Was it last time we talked a little bit about the wheel of success, and looking at different factors in your life, the 12 different factors, and really, to me, that's about, like, okay, figuring out where life has some more meaning to you, and trying to figure out, like, where you want it to be. What does a perfect 10 look like? So even like with the vision, like the difference between like a mission and vision, like a vision to me is like trying to get a picture of the future of the world, like after you've achieved your mission. If you've achieved your mission, had the impact that you wanted to have, how has the world changed, or the community? Maybe your vision is around a community, and you want to see this community that you work in, that your business is in, and and maybe you can envision, like, the parks that maybe you've built, that maybe they've got your name on a placard because you've left that legacy. Maybe there's a road named after you because of the impact that you had in that local district, or maybe the schools are bigger, better, maybe you donated a bunch of computers so you can imagine the technology and the systems that are in there for the students. Maybe a nonprofit that you really care about has a bigger reach. Maybe you can imagine all the smiles and all the lives that the people have touched through that nonprofit that you've even worked through. Those are some of those things where I think, like, if you really want to have significance, picturing that future, just trying to get an image of it in your mind and trying to describe it in as much detail can be really powerful in terms of like a force that because we always talk about, like, drive, what drives you, what pushes you, but I'm like, what pulls you, what's pulling you towards that future that you want to see?
And those thoughts, and I've done things like a mind map where you kind of spin off these different. I don't know about you, but those really give me energy. It's a fun thing to kind of work through, and I don't know that everyone does that to that extent. I like that. You're looking at your vision, and if you achieved it, what would the world look like around you? That's pretty impactful.
Yeah, what is that? Because to me, that's that significance. What's the impact that you had? So I encourage you. We're going to go into part 2 here in a second. I encourage you as a listener, again, take that, write out your vision, write out, like, imagine all the impacts that you could have on your family, and what college did your kids go to, and how did you help them to maybe start their own businesses, or whatever that vision is that you have, like write it out, describe it out, and figure out what pulls you into that future of that significance that you can have in other people's lives. So we're going to take a quick break and play for the sponsor. But I just want to let you know part 2, risk management for small business. And no, we're not going to tell you what insurance policies you should get or something like that. It's not going to be like that. We're actually going to talk to you about how to go about developing those risk management skills. What are some steps that you can start taking? So stay tuned. It's going to be really, really good, really, really helpful. And Roxy, can you go ahead and run the commercial? Have you been suffering from chronic pain, disease, or sleep disorders? Did you know that 75 to 90% of disease is caused by inflammation in the body? The sad truth is, most doctors just treat symptoms rather than finding and fixing root causes of inflammation. If you want to fix your health problems, then finding and fixing the cause of the inflammation is a must. It's time to demand this for your health care and start living life to its fullest again. Book a discovery appointment with the Functional Health Team founder, Dr. Flory, to get your answers ASAP at www.functionalhealthteam.com. All right, and we're back. And honestly, Dr. Flory has helped me with some things that I've been struggling with pain and stuff like that. So I definitely encourage you think outside the box a little bit. Don't just think pills. Don't just think medicine. There's a cause of inflammation in your body. Dr. Flory helps you find that. So please, give Dr. Flory a call. All right. And we're going to jump right into risk management in your business. And so Joe, what is risk management? I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what that is. So Joe, what is risk management?
When I think of it as more just looking at, the risk that we all face. Every business has different risks. Their operations look different, but just looking at those, evaluating them, and having a plan, to lessen or mitigate those, those opportunities for those things to happen. So it's just really, looking at the business, looking at what your operations look like, and figuring out where some of those, challenges, come in.
That's good. So it's kind of about like identifying those things that might occur, those little surprises, especially in business that might be expensive or I guess might decrease or might impact your ability to function and operate.
Right.
And figuring out ways to either prevent them or mitigate or repair, fix it, right? Okay. Why do you think that this is so important, such an important topic for people to really take seriously?
Well, I just looking at my business and my clients, and kind of seeing the things they go through on the day to day, I know there's opportunities for them to, protect, their clients, protect their employees. There's things that they can do, to help lessen those risks. And, just talking through some of those things is helpful. A lot of times these business owners, they know their business, better than most. And, they've got ideas, and just kind of talking through what they're doing, to help protect, is it's valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just kind of thinking through working with clients, there are things that can completely shut you down. And if you don't take some time to figure out what those are and figure out how to prevent them or figure out a way to fix them. Actually, I love that exercise. Have you ever done the Tim Ferriss fear setting exercise? Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. What was your experience with that?
I didn't do the assessment, but I'm familiar with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the fear setting is kind of where you even look at what potential fears you have, like that could slow you down or stop you or keep you immobile, take it from taking action. and that's kind of on the psychological, mental, emotional side, maybe even spiritual. But then you say, okay, so what likelihood could it have? What likelihood is it that this could happen? What does that situation look like? How can I prevent it from happening? And then if it does happen, how can I fix it? Right. So it's kind of like along those lines, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And so how does this play a role? Because I want people to, and again, we're not going to like get into like all sorts of insurance policies that you should buy or anything like that. But I just want people to kind of understand, how does this play a role as an insurance agent? Like, why is it important for you to think as like a risk manager of sorts?
Well, the details are very important, when we're talking through potential insurance products. It's good to understand, their business, how they operate, those different facets, make a difference. And we just, it's good to hear the carriers. A lot of carriers like to hear, what kind of loss prevention techniques, they're using, and, how they're helping, lessen the opportunity of those claims happening. So, it's just, it's good to talk through those details, and, the insurance products, that we offer, we're always looking at, protecting clients. I mean, obviously we can't protect from every single, scenario, but it's, we definitely talk through the details and try to, provide an option that fits the client's needs.
Okay. And, I know for a lot of stuff, it's kind of like ends up being kind of mitigation. So something happens, you having the funds to be able to mitigate or fix that problem is pretty important, right? Yeah. I mean, I know somebody who was recently hit by a cyber attack, so hackers, and unfortunately, they did not have a cyber insurance policy, and so it could affect their clients, and it could really impact their business because of what costs there might be associated with that. So that's kind of like an example. What are some ways that people can start getting into the kind of that risk management mindset, like kind of start stepping in that direction?
What I like, that you brought up Tim Ferriss and that fear, experiment. I think it is good to look at the probability of losses, looking at their operations and, seeing the things that are commonplace in that industry, and building a plan around that. I know you mentioned cyber, but, loss prevention can look different in different businesses. For instance, like a roofing company, what I mean? A lot of, depending what state you're in, I know there's standards like OSHA where you have to, work in a certain way to protect yourself. But whether, like a roofer, tying off, while you're up there, it's, these things are things that can help lessen, the severity and the frequency of accidents. Cyber insurance, if you're a doctor's office, what I mean? The security that you have, what I mean? I know the big thing with that is the type of information that you store for clients, what I mean? It's good to kind of talk through those things and make sure, they're doing the best they can at protecting information. But whether these are two different business types, but they have different exposures. But even cyber, may be something that a contractor needs. You know what I mean? It's really each company. You can have construction companies doing similar operations, but they do things differently. So it's not a one size fits all. You really have to talk through the operations and get those details.
Yeah. Well, it was Target, wasn't it? Target, that whenever they had that big breach, it was through like a contractor, like a HVAC company or something like that was working with them. And since the HVAC company was breached, they were able to then, I think, access some some of Target's records, and then I don't know if phishing was involved or what, but there was I believe it was that way, and a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. But like there's a lot of things that can happen. I mean that for a business that market issues or internal employee issues. Like what is a good process for people to go through to think about some of these risks to their business? Is it like a SWOT analysis a good example of a way to step into it?
I think that would be a good experiment for any company. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just to kind of understand, their strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
An opportunity. I've done a SWOT analysis myself, and I know it's impactful to see those things on paper and kind of work through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like with a SWOT analysis, can you walk people through like a SWOT analysis, and how to kind of go about thinking about that for their business, like because it's what strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right?
Right.
Yeah, and the strengths are like external. Or I'm sorry, no, the strengths are internal, and the weaknesses are also internal, right? And then the opportunities and threats, those are kind of like external things. So like how do you go about kind of filling out that like a SWOT analysis chart?
Well, I haven't done that with clients.
Oh,
I've
okay.
done it for my own business, but
Yeah. Right. Okay. So what are some examples of like some of the internal threats that people can run across in their business? Like what are some of those risks internally?
sure. I mean, anytime you have employees, there's injuries that can occur. There's
Yeah.
there's the way you handle situations internally with employees. There's just a lot of variables in how you process things within a company
Mm-hmm.
that could open exposures. So it's probably I would say it's a good idea for them to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's a lot that can happen internally. I mean, in terms of like, especially on the human side. I think people are even seeing that right now with like the Great Resignation and just difficulty with getting people to be productive and all that. I mean, there's the physical, mental issues of things, and the morale and productivity. Those are some internal things that unfortunately I see a lot of people overlook some of that stuff. They didn't think to plan ahead and just think that like kind of the same old leadership is going to be effective, as opposed to seeing kind of the trends and trying to adapt. Trying to figure out how can you bring some more of the flexibility to the workplace. How can you create a better environment for people to work? So I think those are some of the things that people should think about. What about like equipment and technical type issues? I mean, we talked a little bit about like cybersecurity, but what do you like for a contractor? I mean, sometimes their equipment is like, they're shut down if their equipment gets broken or something like that, or if there's some sort of theft, something like that, right?
Right. The maintenancing of the vehicles and
Yeah.
the loss prevention with how you store the equipment or tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, how you store it, how you go about where where the location is. Is it likely that is it in a high crime area? Is it in a floodplain? Those are things to think about. But also, I think it's interesting because there can be, I think, even threats on the positive side of things. So if like one example that I know and I've seen very commonly working with sales teams is like that. Have you ever seen it where it like somebody gets a sale, they close the deal, And then it's kind of like, I'm just going to chill. I'm going to take the time to celebrate. I'm going to chill and, get back hard at it like next week or maybe tomorrow. But, they kind of slack off for the rest of the day because I closed the deal. All right, I'm good. That's a threat from a positive thing happening, isn't it?
It can be.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what are some other steps that business owners can take in terms of risk management? What other advice would you have for them?
I think there's so much information, out there, that's shared among businesses. It's good to kind of know what's trending in your industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because because if you're thinking about the external threats, right? Yeah, that's that kind of that competition in the marketplace, maybe even the business environment. I've seen companies where they had like a great location, but then the roads were changed, the traffic flows were changed in such a way as to where that location ended up being terrible, and they had to shut down, like a little diner. I've seen that with little diners, because a highway ended up kind of coming through and making access difficult, and so they ended up getting shut down. That's good. What else have you seen? Have you seen like what example of like market shifts have you seen that might get people kind of thinking?
I just, with the pandemic, there's certainly been, businesses that are having to pivot and change the way they market, change the way they operate, with restrictions and different things. So, there's been, some creative things I've seen folks doing, certain industries, that have helped them, I guess, kind of make it through some of these tough times. So
that's been a huge example of market shifts. And for folks who were kind of already thinking about, seeing the Uber Eats and seeing the trends of what are some of the other ones? Postmates, I think that's another one. Even before COVID, those things were starting to trend. I mean, we had started doing our groceries through an Instacart, probably, I don't know, a year before COVID, maybe 6 months before COVID. So we already kind of started, and we were loving it. But for it's like the restaurants that were able to think ahead and see those trends, and they were already starting to pivot, or they were already on Uber Eats, it wasn't quite as difficult or detrimental as the ones that had to like figure out, how are we going to make this work? Our menu isn't online anywhere, and how are we going to get online? Are we equipped to take orders? That's an excellent example of the ones that were maybe able to survive versus the ones that didn't. Absolutely. So, one of the things that I was kind of ask you about, like, so we were kind of talking about like, the external threats, and what are some ways for like people to plan for like natural disasters? Because like those happen, those are out of the blue, but those can like seriously shut down. What are some ways for people to kind of like think ahead about that sort of stuff?
I mean, it's, those things are not things that folks have any control over. Obviously, flooding, hail, these things going to come out of nowhere. But, just doing a little research ahead of time, and there, I'm not saying that you can mitigate every scenario, but, I have seen situations where folks, were aware of certain, we'll just say challenges, you know what I mean? But they hadn't seen anything happen from it, you know what I mean? So from past experience, there'd been no repercussions. But, I think being aware of the potential of certain losses, and evaluating the cost to mitigate that, may change an opinion about the coverage. You know what I mean? If you knew what it cost and the probability of it happening, it may be something that you'd want to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've even seen it where like people don't necessarily think about the potential for like sewer backups or flooding, and so they didn't necessarily, and their insurance agents never really brought it up to them. They didn't even realize that it wasn't even covered in their policies, and so because there was some sort of sewer backup that caused some sort of damage. I mean, even if you're in a strip mall, especially if you're in a strip mall with a restaurant, in there, because unfortunately not all the grease always gets disposed of properly. you're at right, not not hit trying to ding restaurants here, but it happens. That's a good one too. Yeah. So what because we're going to be kind of wrapping up here in the next just few minutes, but what are some of the most common like blind spots people have when it comes to risks in their business? Like what are the biggest ones that you've seen?
I just sometimes businesses, when they're in growth mode, they start to take on other opportunities that are kind of ancillary, products or services, and it's good to as your business changes, to reach out, let your insurance agent, the insurance company know these changes in operations, because they may or may not be covered. They may be rating you for one thing, and that's what you've always done, but now your business has grown and you've taken on these new things. Sometimes it's even with the pandemic, with pivoting, and trying to find other revenue streams and different things.
Yeah. So with, as we were talking about, like if you have drivers delivering like food for you, like in the restaurant, you have to think about like what kind of coverage do I need? Like what happens if they were to hit somebody along the way, and they happen to mention to that person, oh yeah, I was delivering for such and such restaurant. Well, they could potentially go after you, right? That happened to Domino's, right? And that's why they kind of shut down their that 30-minute, remember the 30 minutes or less deal? Yeah. Well, they got into too many accidents, trying to deliver pizzas, and too many insurance claims. So yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, I've seen that a lot, where like people will let their employees drive the company vehicles, even for like personal stuff, and they don't realize that they might not even be covered for that, right? Isn't there like a difference between work time, personal time, and the use of vehicles?
It's definitely an important detail. You'd want to make sure your policy is going to respond if they're using their vehicle, during business hours for business purposes.
Yeah. Well, that's a great example. Well, awesome. And well, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, I know we've had the scroll on the video, but if you're just listening audio, what's a good way to for people to get a hold of you if they just want to kind of talk through what they've got going on in their business, and just get some additional ideas about like where some of their blind spots might be, and what they might want to think about in terms of protecting themselves and their livelihood?
Sure. The best way is just to reach out to me by phone. My number's on the screen, 314-960-2192.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. So again, to kind of wrap up today, it's important to live a life of significance. And I think at the end of the day, you want to feel like people at your eulogy are going to say good things about you. They're going to talk about the impact that you had on their lives. There's few people who say, who want people talking about, the big bank account at the eulogy. They want people saying, we really love this person because of how they affected our lives. So think about that, as you're trying to build your vision for how you live a life of significance, and then put on your risk management hat on your business. And that was part two, is is risks. There are many risks in your business, and surprises happen. But there's a difference between, an expensive surprise that you have coverage for, that you've thought through and that you've got a plan for, whether that's the money or just, you that you're able to pivot in some way, versus, these things happen and it's just a straight up surprise. There's no plan, there's no action. So get some good advisors around you. We help that with our clients, just kind of get an idea. And then obviously Joe, he can help you think through a lot of the things that he's seen in small businesses and just how to protect yourselves. There's no need for expensive surprises that leave you vulnerable without a plan. So thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much, Joe, for being on the show. And remember, don't just listen to this. Do it. This is a call to action. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life of your dreams.